Hello, I'm Deborah, and I'm the head gardener here at St Hilda's, and welcome to our Hilary term gardener's update. There's a lot going on in the garden at the moment, as I'm sure you can imagine, both plant-wise and work-wise. But I thought I'd bring you down to the far end of Hall Garden, to what we call the blossom border, this border behind me. And this is coming into its moment. It starts off very early in the season with winter aconites, the bright yellow winter aconites. And because they start so early, we always do our winter maintenance for this border. So our cutting down, if we're doing any mulching, we make sure we get that done before Christmas. Any later, and we'll be disrupting the early bulbs. So you can see that the winter aconites have already gone over, and their place has been taken by a sheet of snowdrops. Snowdrops do really well at St Hilda's. They bulk up very quickly and they colonise, they naturalise, they're very happy. You can see how many we've got. Amongst the snowdrops, we've got this prunus. This is Prunus mume. It's a variety called Prunus mume omoi no mama. I might not have got the pronunciation of that right. It's a Japanese plum, or actually it's a Japanese flowering apricot, and makes a large bush or a small tree. And this is planted as a memorial tree to a student who was a visiting student at St Hilda's in 1899. So 1899, just 7 years after St Hilda's was founded. Her name was Tsuda Umeko. And when she returned back to Japan, she became a pioneer in women's education, and she founded the Tsuda University. St Hilda's still has a connection with the Tsuda University, and every year we will send pictures of these flowering plums. We've got this one and a second one in the top of the border to our connection at the university, and we often have visitors from the university to St Hilda's. Aside from the prunus, we also have this nandina. This is Nandina domestica. Fantastic plant, really good value in the garden. In the garden centres, you'll see lots of different varieties of Nandina being sold. And we sometimes buy those and we use them for our dot plants or our focal plants when we're making up displays in our containers. But when it comes to planting in the garden, we think straight Nandina domestica is the best. This has been in the ground for 7 years, and it suckers and bulks up a little bit, but not problematically. You can see it's got those berries which it holds all through the winter. The birds don't touch them at all. It's got fantastic foliage, and it has its flowers which are in bud at the moment, and we use it in flower arranging. So it's a really good shrub. And actually those berries, when you come in the Porter's Lodge and you look down Hall Garden, you can see them from the far end, which is lovely. Otherwise in the border, just to show you, we did our cutting down. We've got these Caryopteris, and we stall them in winter back to a couple of pairs of buds. But a couple of years ago, I cut them down before Christmas when I did the full maintenance, and then we lost some. And I think I cut them too early and too hard, or possibly we just had a very, very cold patch. So I've left them a bit longer this year. They're ready to be cut now, but I will be stooling those within the next couple of weeks. And they, Caryopteris, give us a fantastic blue haze in August, smothered in flowers of blue in August time. One other shrub in the border is this Daphne, Daphne odora Oreomarginata. Odora, because it is fantastically scented. I can smell it standing here. Absolutely beautiful with these scented flowers. Oreomarginata, because it has this variegation, this line of variegation around the edge of the leaves, and forms a good shrub either side of this seating area. It's one of the most reliable Daphnes we find. I just wanted to show you this new bed that's beside the new library entrance, so planted last year. And we have just in the last 2 weeks planted all these snowdrops. All of these snowdrops you can see, which are straight Galanthus nivalis, came from one clump that we lifted from the little meadow down the far end of College. We lifted it, we divided it into groups of 1, 2 or 3 bulbs, and we put them straight in. So there was hardly an hour between lifting and putting them in. And even though they're in flower, you can see they've settled perfectly. We often talk about planting snowdrops in the green. They're much better to plant or divide when they've got their leaves rather than as dry bulbs. And we don't wait till the flowers have gone over, as you can see. And these will start to bulk up and they'll give us a sheet of white, which can be seen by everybody entering the library at this time of year. So this is some new planting that we did about a month ago. And this is underneath the magnolia, this magnificent Magnolia Soulangeana, which is planted very close to garden building. Too close really to garden building, but we have an area, it's absolutely fabulous in flower, but we have this area which was slightly scrubby underneath, and we decided to make use of it. This area is in shade most of the year underneath the magnolia. It's dry, competitive shade with the magnolia and the building. So we've had to choose our plants really carefully, and they're plants which will do their thing in spring before the magnolia leaves up. So you'll see that we've got lots of hellebores. Some of these hellebores were here originally and we lifted them, cultivated the bed, and then we've replaced them. Some were all over the college. Indeed, there were lots of hellebores in the place where the anniversary building now is. And we've kept them for a few years and now we've replanted them. And you can see what a display they're making. So the other plants that are in here, again, some of which were lifted and then have been replanted, are the Brunnera macrophylla, and we've got some pulmonaria in here. There are a couple of shrubs in here just to give it a little bit of structure. So we've got a Maho berberis there, which is a hybrid between Mahonia and berberis. So Maho berberis, Dart's treasure, and then in the middle we've got Euonymus emerald gaiety. You can see there's a backdrop of the green there, lovely green backdrop of a mature sarcococca, which is between the bed and the walkway between garden building and Wolfson. And we've got all sorts of other treasures in here. Aster davericatus, one of my favourites, we'll see how that scrambles around. Geranium phaeum, samobor, and Epimedium colchicum, Pinatum colchicum, as well as some ferns. So we'll have to see how things fare, because this will get really dry mid-late summer, even though it's getting the moisture now. And this far end is completely different because it's outside the canopy of the magnolia and it's south facing. So that will get a lot of sun. So that will be differently dry. So we got to watch and see how things fare. So this is a really exciting moment. Any of you who've been into the college in the last 3 years and spoken to any of us, the gardening team, you'll have heard us talk about the rock garden and how it's a project which we're determined to do, to refurbish this long, beautiful, incredible rock garden that St Hilda's has along beside South Building. And here it is, we've begun, just. So we've chosen a very small section, you can see here. We've started to weed it extremely thoroughly, bottoming it out as we call it. We've had to move some of the stones slightly just to get the roots deep in amongst the stones. Then we've removed quite a lot of the topsoil because there was surplus. We put it aside, we'll be reusing it. Once we've decided whether the rocks are exactly where we want them, we will then backfill with a mixture of the topsoil and something very gritty, sandy, that will give the plants that we plant good drainage. So it's a long process, but we've begun. Even though these rocks have been here a long time and there is some deterioration, they have been laid really well. You can see the lines, the layers that mimic rock strata. So we have an excellent foundation, and then you can see the layers. Perhaps the top is a bit problematic. But so this means we won't have to move possibly so many rocks. We will have to add some to fill these gaps and maybe adjust some, especially on the top. But as we go along, we will realise what's needed for each area of the rock garden to make it aesthetically pleasing and also to make it suitable for the plants that we'll be planting. There will be pockets of soil for the plants so that they can get their roots deep down and have a good cool root run, which is exactly what they'll want. So this is our last bag of compost that we've made in our compost bins, and we've been using it for mulch all around the college this year. This is the first time we've used our own compost for mulching, and we've spread somewhere between 200 and 300 barrows, if not more, all around the college, and the bin is now empty. Matt, our gardener, emptied the bin of compost this morning and put the last of it in here, which will spread later this week. The bed I showed you underneath the magnolia, all of that was covered with a deep layer of mulch, which will help a lot with the dryness that I was talking about. Some areas we've also, when we're cultivating, we've dug it in as well as adding that top layer. We will now move one bay, the first bay of the compost bin, into the bay where this was, so that will be making the compost which we'll be using for mulch next year. So it feels a real triumph for us to be using our own now. And finally, here are the pots. I was talking about the pots in our last gardener's update because we'd just been planting them. And here you can see the result. The plants have settled in really well. They've put on some growth, so they've been filling the pot. You can see we've got a combination of evergreens like this Viburnum tinus here and this Escallonia, which has been slightly frosted, and the Skimmia. And then we've got bedding plants like the pansies and the polyanthus. You can see here, this is one of the Nandinas that I was talking about earlier. This is Nandina domestica obsessed, I believe. And they fill the pots out nicely and they give a really vivid display for everybody who's walking past all day. So we're really pleased with them.